Today's topic is bread baking 101. We're going to use kneaded yeast bread to go through these steps. You'll typically use this kind of a recipe when you're making your sandwich loaves, hamburger buns, hot dog buns, pizza doughs, sweet rolls, things like that. On our site, familybaker.com, under the video link, you'll also see links to artisan bread, which is a no-knead bread, sprouted grain breads, and sourdough breads. But this is a very straightforward, simple way, step by step. My whole idea is like, let's keep it simple because we got lots of life going on. All right, so let's get started. The first thing you're going to do is your warm water. The water has to be just temperate. It's not too hot, not too cold, just to wake the yeast up. So you're going to pour this in. We're making two 2-pound loaves of bread. So I have 3 cups of water. I use coconut oil, and under our links, you'll see a review on coconut oils. So for this recipe, I'm going to use 1/4 cup of coconut oil. And then 1/4 cup of some local raw honey. This is wildflower. Next will be our salt. And yes, I'm putting the salt in right now. That way we don't have to deal with it later. For a 2-pound recipe, we're going to use a tablespoon of salt. We use Real Salt brand. Under some of our links, we're going to go through some of the ingredients and give some reviews for them. Gluten flour is another topic that we're going to go on to, but I use 1/4 cup. We carry this in 1 pound, 5 pound, and then these 10-pound pails. So I'm going to put 1/4 cup in. The reason it's we use this, I didn't used to use it when I lived in Florida. I was at sea level, but in Colorado baking with the altitude, we need it. It's a 2x4 structure to make our bread come up. You can do other things to jump through some other hoops to make this happen, and if you want to try to stay away from this kind of stuff, then that works too. But this is just, again, keeping it as simple as possible. And next is going to be our yeast. It's going to be 4 teaspoons of yeast. And this is a professional yeast, the SAF, S-A-F yeast. It's instant. It's rated at 90% active to get things just going quickly. It's going to have more success than some of the others that don't have such a high rating. It's going to just wake up. It doesn't have to be proofed. It doesn't have to have a certain temperature. Just as long as it's your water is not cold and it's not hot. It's just a normal room temperature, like if you test it on your wrist. Now I've already milled up the flour to save time, but we're going to go under another link. We're going to talk about that kind of stuff too. But I just wanted to keep it straight with this. It's going to be about a total of 8 cups of flour. And making bread is a recipe, but also in part it's art. So please don't think I've got to stick strictly to it, because we have factors going on where you live. If you have high, we're semi-arid here, so it's very dry outside. We have some rainy days, which is going to change it. We have a high altitude here. All these kind of things are going to play into factors, but it's not a major deal breaker. But you just have to realize that I'm going to follow a recipe, but I have to be flexible and wait till I feel it. And I'm going to show you what I mean here in a minute. So I'm going to add 6 of those 8 cups of flour. Put the just turn it on to, I'm going to turn on to number 1. Now this is a soupy, globulous mess, and if you see on here, it's kind of coming together, but it doesn't have any cohesion. There's no kneading has taken place. What I'm doing is I'm giving the time for the phytic acids to break down. Phytic acid is preventing the grain from rotting. Apples have phytic acid, but in any given season, they're going to grow on your tree, they're going to fall down, they're going to rot on the ground. Grain doesn't do that. This bond of phytic acid keeps it from rotting. It's God's long-term storage food. But now I want it to break down because I want to be able to digest it. And there's different things that you can do. One of them is after it's flour, it hits the water, give it a few minutes to break down. I usually do about 20 minutes. During this time, I clean up my goodies and work in the kitchen or something. So for about 20 minutes, I'm going to let this majority of the flour just absorb this water that's in there and allow that phytic acid to start breaking down, because it does. When it hits the water, it starts to break down. Doing sprouted grains is another way. Again, on that keeping it simple, or what part of the journey of bread baking am I on, or health in general. If I try to do everything at once, I burn out. So at this stage, this is a simple way of doing it. Just let it rest in your bowl for about 20 minutes and let some of that break down. So we're going to pause and come back in just a minute. All right, we've given it about 20 minutes to sit on the counter to break down that phytic acid. But remember, it still has about another hour and a half to 2 hours before it's going to go in the oven. So we have more time that we're allowing this process to take place. The other benefit of letting it sit here for the 20 minutes is that the flour has absorbed the water. In our semi-arid climate, the air itself is drawing out some of the water. The flour is drawing in some of the water. So we're not getting a true feel of what is actually happening unless we give it this time. During this 20 minutes, the flour has absorbed the water, and now we have a true feel of what it's like. Also at this time, I tend to put in what I call add-ins, just to boost up all the nutritional value I can get out of my bread. We usually put in chia seeds, and I have black and white. The black is so that you can have a cool effect inside your bread. You can see it all. But if your kids say, "Ooh, Mom, what is that?" No worries. You can put the white in. Put the white in and they won't even notice it. These guys do not have to be milled down. They can be thrown in just as a whole seed. They're great for omega-3s. Flaxseed is also great for your omega-3s, but they do have to be milled. So I just put some in my seed mill and then dump it in. A good rule of thumb, so that you can have just a starting point, so you can end up to see it throughout the bread if you want that cool effect, is do a tablespoon of any one of these guys. And then you can bump it up. You really want to bump up some of your omega-3s, add some more. And I actually put both chia and flaxseed in mine. The other thing that we put in is sesame seeds. Sesame seeds are very high in calcium. So at my age, to have extra calcium, I tend to use a lot of sesame seeds. So I'll put that in. These do not have to be milled either. But just so that I can put a whole lot in, sometimes I'll put, again, I usually do 1 tablespoon per seed as a nice rule of thumb. I'll put that in 1 tablespoon milled, just so it's in there, and 1 tablespoon not milled, so I see the cool texture and effect. The other thing I'll put in sometimes is sunflower seeds, but not always. I just like changing things up. Okay, now we're going to add the rest of our flour. Remember, we put 6 of the 8 cups in, and at this point it is very moist and pulls apart. I'm going to, within about 30 seconds, get the rest of it in. And during this time, I'm going to stop and feel it so that we can get the right amount of hydration level going on. But you'll see what I mean. We want to take it till it's at the sweet spot. This is where the art comes in. Even though my recipe says about 8 to 9 cups of flour, I'm not going to probably put all of that in. In a lot of recipe books, they don't account for our semi-arid climate. All right, now it's being a little less tacky, and it's not needed yet, but it's even starting to, you can start seeing some forms of strands being done. So we still need more. So I'm going to grab another cup and start adding it in. half cup at a time. Where it talks about cleaning the sides, yeah, it's going to clean the sides or not clean the sides. I wouldn't even worry about that kind of stuff. What I'm doing is I'm just squeezing so I can see how much moisture is left. These guys are the 2x4 structures, so I need to have a sufficient amount in. And yeah, you can see probably a little bit of flour on there, but as I'm squeezing it, yeah, it feels about what I like to feel. That's where you're going to start noticing it, and your Brit bacon is going to get better. Okay, with this piece here, we can see that it's no longer tacky. It's staying together, and it falls right apart because it's not being kneaded. So now I'm going to turn it on for 7 minutes on number 2 on the Bosch, and we're going to let it do all the work for us. Okay, it's been 7 minutes, and this is what the dough looks like now. I usually turn this counterclockwise and just take it out because I only have 4 pounds of dough for two 2-pound loaves. It all fits in the bowl. So this is what it looks like. And you probably have heard about the window pane. So just take a little piece, and you just actually what you're testing for is its flexibility, its elasticity. So you just can pull it, and you can just keep pulling it, and it doesn't want to tear apart. And you can see the seeds that I put in. So that's pretty good. Yeah, well, eventually will tear, but you can get it really does a nice pull. Okay, so I'm going to leave it in the bowl, and I'll let it rise, and we'll show you that in just a minute. Okay, it's been about 40 minutes, and it has risen to double. It's a pretty warm day today, so it happened pretty quickly. The cooler days will probably take more. So don't go by time. Please go by the rule, doubled in size. Because some days it's just going to be faster, and some days it's going to be slower. If it's a very cool day, then put it in your bowl with a cover on top. Put it in the oven with just the light on. That makes your oven, it creates it into a proofing box. It keeps it at a nice constant temperature. But today was plenty warm. Now, the couple things I want you to notice is that it is dry. Just like I told you a few minutes ago, that the moisture is going to be coming out of here, and it's going to be dry. So that's why I wanted it to be a tiny bit on the tacky side before. But with this dryness, if I take this out now and I roll it out, this dryness could create a pocket. So when the layers are going together, that dry against dry could make a pocket. So what I'm first going to do is going to take some water and spritz it, and that will hydrate just the outside. All right, so now we're going to take this out and roll it into our loaves. This, again, remember, was a 2-pound loaves of bread. So I'm going to cut it in half, just approximate it. Put this guy back in here just to get it out of our way. So we're just going to take this is 2 pounds. We've made 4 pounds, so divide it in half. We have a 2-pound loaf, and I'm just going to take the palm of my hand, not my fingers, and I'm going to flatten it. And I want to get a rectangular shape. If I do something like this, the dough itself allows for the dough to stretch without breaking any of our gluten strands. You don't want your gluten strands, your 2x4s, to get broken, because that's what's going to give you your nice lift. So you kind of want to be gentle with it. That whole expression about punching down your dough, don't punch it. Gently push it down. And then again, I'm going to take this squirt bottle, just a light mist, and that's going to flour and water make glue. It's going to not allow it to be dry, not create a pocket, but actually adhere it. I'm going to pull it towards you and roll. Pull it towards you and roll. Pull it towards you and roll. That creates a nice, tight bond. Okay, we're going to pinch it where it's there and then roll that. And that's just really is for presentation. You just want a pretty loaf of bread. And then I'm going to keep my hand here, and I'm going to squeeze it. I want the roll to be even across the whole log of the dough. And it's going to be approximately the same length as my pan. So I'm pretty happy with it. It's pretty even. Now I'm going to put it in. It's been oiled and put it in. Now, as you see, it's not all the way across. It's not in the corners. So I'm going to take the back part of my hand, be very gentle, and I'm going to press it in to those corners. I want it to be flat all the way across. That way, when it's rising in here and it's rising straight up, the center, if it's just as flat as the ends, that the crown is going to come right across there and be nice and even. You don't want your crown to come across like that. So by flattening it out, it makes that happen. And then we'll take the towel and cover it up, and we'll do the other one in a minute, and just let it rise on the counter again until doubled. Probably about 45 minutes. That gives you an idea. But on a warm day, it'll be faster. And on a cold day, it'll be slower. And in about 30 minutes, I'm going to turn the oven on to 350. That way, when the rising time is done, these guys are ready to go right into the oven. Again, if it was a cold day, for the first 30 minutes, you're going to want to put this into your cold oven with the light on. At the end of 30 minutes, it's been rising in that nice proof box that you've created. You'll take it out, put it on the counter, then you'll turn your oven on. Give your oven at least a good 15 minutes to warm up. That way it's just ready to go. Okay, now they've risen to double. They're nice and puffy. We're going to put them in a 350-degree oven for 35 minutes. Remember, ovens vary, but it's always better to decide on the overbake side than underbake side. Start out with a 350 for 35 minutes and see what your oven does. And then in the oven, they're going to spring just a little bit more. Okay, we've taken them out of the oven. They baked for about 35 minutes at 350. When I tap on them, they have a bit of a hollow sound to them. That is just a kind of an indicator that they're done. So I turn them on their side and pop them out. And I leave them on their side for a few minutes and cover them up. Just 2 or 3, because there's steam inside of the bread, obviously, because it just came out of the oven. So when steam comes out, something's going to cave. And I'd rather the sides cave down a little bit instead of the pretty crown. So once it's done, in 2 or 3 minutes, then I'll set it back this way and let it finish the cooling process. Then you will, if you like that crispy crust on the outside, when you're cutting into it, after it cools, don't cut into it until it cools down some. I know we all like it warm out of the oven with butter on it, but if I cut it right now, the steam is going to come right out, and that's going to dry out my bread immediately. The slice that you're eating will be great, but you know, the one in an hour from now is going to be drier. So just let it cool, and then you can slice it. But if you want to keep the crusty crust on your cutting board, just after you cut it, put it straight up like that. That way the crumb that's exposed is on your cutting board, and it kind of seals the moisture in and doesn't let it dry out. And then that keeps this exposed just to air, and then that keeps it crispy. If you like softer exteriors, the crusts, then after it's completely cooled, please let it be completely cooled, then stick it in your bag. And just the fact that it's a moist food, it'll just soften up the crust. Well, that's it. If you have any questions, just email me, Nadine@familybaker.com. Please follow us on Facebook at The Family Baker Arvada. And for more YouTube videos, go to familybaker.com and click on the video tab.